Alex Belfield.
One of the stars of the show is Shelley King, and I'm also very pleased to say she's joining me now. Hello.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Oh, likewise, and thank you for the tour of the theatre. To get here, we had to kind of do a bit of mountain climbing, really, didn't we?
Indeed, yes. I get more exercise backstage than I do on, but there you go. I mean, you know, it's an old theatre, so... oh, sorry about that. It's an old theatre, so it's sort of got many, many corridors up and down and round, and but it keeps you fit. It's very good for the buttocks muscles.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Now, this theatre, for about 15 years, was used by Starlight Express, and it had a huge transformation when they got rid of it and put this show on, and the theatre is looking amazing now, isn't it?
Oh, it's wonderful, it's wonderful. It was originally a cinema, and it's been restored to all its sort of 20s Art Deco glory, which is great, particularly for the Bollywood film scene, because it takes you back. It's Hollywood in the old days. That's what Bollywood is now, you know, and it's fantasy and it's colours and it's pinks and greens and lights, and I think it's a wonderful theatre to have this. It's also when you're on stage, although it holds 2,000 people, it feels quite close in a strange way. It is difficult in that you can't hear the audience in this theatre, so that's quite annoying because my character Kitty particularly works with an audience, so you have to get used to there are certain places on the stage that you can't hear people. So you've got to once you get used to it, and that's fine. But it's a nice atmosphere, you know.
This was a very interesting show to put on because, as you say, it's about Bollywood and it's about Asian films. It's about Andrew Lloyd Webber being part of a new radical musical, and it's been criticised and it's been applauded, and I think more people are saying that it's a great musical than a bad one. That must have been nervous for you in the beginning, because this is probably the most risky musical that's ever been launched in the West End, really, isn't it?
Well, I suppose it is, but I also think, though, that Indian music, or Asian music generally, has been so influential in our global society in the past few years, particularly, that people are more attuned to it than they think. I mean, you know, it's over half the population that are used to these rhythms, you know, and, you know, Indian food is the most popular in this whole country. You go into Indian restaurants, you hear music. So subliminally, one's ear is already tuned to this music. So it isn't as alien as you might think. In fact, even modern-day pop groups are all using them. We've had them since John Lennon. John Lennon was using them, you know, in the 60s. So, and Freddie Mercury, Queen uses them all the time. I'm not plugging in, you know, an alien show, but yeah. So, I think it's wrong for people to think that they're going to come in and listen to something that they're totally unused to. Actually, they're rhythms that people are very familiar with. They're rhythms of the body and the heart. So, but it is. I mean, I suppose it is courageous in that people like, particularly in musical land, people like to get what they know. And they think they don't know this, but I'm telling them that they do know it, because they will have heard the music before. They will be used to the rhythms. Perhaps not, you know, in musicals like My Fair Lady, but certainly in their everyday lives, they will be used to the rhythms of this music.
I think what people forget is that Bollywood churns out far more movies every year than Hollywood ever has done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, now you can go to any high street anywhere in the country and there will be Bollywood musicals playing. Any video shop has a Bollywood rack. It's not specifically for any minority area of the community. It's there everywhere, and it's fantasy and it's entertaining, you know. And Hollywood was at its most successful at the time of Great Depression. And forgive me, I think that we are in a time of Great Depression now, and we need fantasy as well as those movies that stir us and move us. We do need to be, you know, taken away from ourselves, and I think that this particularly does that, and Bollywood does that, and this musical does that.
And in the kindest way, I think this is wonderfully over top. The costumes, the lighting, the set, it's great, and it's a feel-good show, isn't it?
It is a feel-good show. It is, and but I also think that it does look at, you know, fairly emotive issues. It does look at the slums. Perhaps, you know, obviously not in great depth. I mean, not in the way that a documentary film would. But it makes you aware that there is poverty, you know. I mean, I'm talking about perhaps my character, Kitty, who is a commentator on the action. And she is destroyed by Bollywood, rather, because she fights against it, and she can't keep her mouth shut. So you gradually see her go. I mean, it's a cameo character, but you can see that this huge industry has an effect on people. Rani, who's wonderfully played by Ayesha Tharkar, her character is getting older, although she's not getting older, but in terms of Bollywood she does, and she disappears. So there is pathos. You know, the ending is happy, but there's a question mark. So I think it actually does cover all situations. It's not just sort of, go there and forget everything. It does remind you subtly. But you come out, I think, feeling, great and smiley and happy and stirred by the music and the rhythms. And, the drummers are wonderful. I think they stir me every time I hear them, and the Kavalis and Chaya Chaya, which is a great number that many people will know already because it's a very famous musical number that Rahman wrote before and used in a movie before, which he's reworked for this, so...
We're going to talk more about the show in depth in a moment, and more about your character and more about your career, but we're going to take a piece of music now, and proof of the pudding that Asian music and Indian music is still good and popular anywhere in the world is Shakalaka Baby, because it's in the charts, it's doing very well on radio airplay, and it's a great, great song, isn't it?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's got all the rhythms, and it's got, beautiful, it's visually stunning if you see it. And you cannot help it. Just you want to move to it and dance to it and scream to it and laugh to it. I think it's wonderful. I don't really. Well, in fact, I think we're going to put it into our curtain call. We've just been working that in today because we find. I think people in the street just know Shakalaka. The most extraordinary people. My aunt's old friend suddenly said, "Oh, I know, it's Shakalaka Baby." I thought, what? I didn't expect that, but I think people. I heard it on Victoria Station. I actually heard a phone going dee 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 dee. I thought, we've arrived. This is it. So yeah, I think it's wonderful, and for that number alone, it's worth a visit.
And Preya Khalid as well. What can I say? Stunning, gorgeous, and a most amazing voice. The best that you will hear on the West End, undoubtedly. A great, great voice and a wonderful talent.
Oh, she's just extraordinary. She opens her mouth, and this extraordinary, rich, and pitch perfect sound comes out.
It's sickening, really, isn't it?
No, I think Kitty must hate her. No, Kitty's always wanted to be Shirley Bassey, Eartha Kitt, and Judy Garland, but they never had them in Mumbai, so she's been fighting a losing battle. But yeah, Priya's wonderful, and Raza, and moves wonderfully, sings wonderfully. Aisha Tharka, who's an absolutely captivating dancer and actress, and has done many films, as you probably know, Monsoon Wedding and The Terrorist and things like that. And the whole cast and the company, who are the stars, the actual ensemble, they never stop for 2.5 hours. They never stop. They don't even stop during the interval. They're changing. Their wigs are changing. And without the energy of the company, those 35 girls and boys who are there constantly, we wouldn't have a musical. So, I think we're so lucky. And we all get on well together, which is the most important thing.
Wonderfully camp and over the top.
Oh, yes, you've got to have a camp character in a musical. And, she's a gossip columnist who's been around for many, many years. And we find her at the moment of she's also a frustrated political journalist. This is the problem with Kitty. So she can't keep her mouth shut. And all of us, we work so well together, particularly the boys and girls who are on all the time. I really must emphasise that, because without them, you wouldn't have a show.
But are you making it up? There must be some bitching somewhere. You must hate somebody. Come on.
No, I really don't. I'd love to find somebody to bitch about, but I honestly can't. Very unusual for an actor. I'm sure that I'll get back to you. I'll take a rain check on that one and come back. We don't have time to bitch. We honestly don't have time, because it's a new musical. And when you're doing a new musical or any new piece of work in theatre, you've got to keep working at it.